تابوت بنے گا، جس جھولے میں جھولا ہے وہ تابوت بنے گا۔ عزادارو 6 ماہ نے صغیراں چاہ کے انہی والدہ نے جڑا وہن کیتا ہے، کٹے ہوئے بچے دی لاش تو چاہ کے ہتھاں وال کھول کے سین رباب نے جڑا وہن کیتا ہے، مشہور و معروف قدیم پرسا پاکستان دنیا پڑھیا جانا ہے۔ آجا ویلال اصغر آجا ویلال اصغر آجا ویلال اصغر جھولا تیرا جھلاواں کیوں رس گیا ہے ماتوں جا ویلال جاواں آجا ویلال اصغر۔ سین رباب نے کیڑا سین پہ مین پڑھیا ہے؟ آ میرا نازنیے ڈاڈی گرم زمینے، آ میرا نازنیے ڈاڈی گرم زمینے، آجا میں چولی پا کے آجا میں چولی پا کے والاں دی چھاں بناواں جا ویلال اصغر۔
ماشاء میری گزارش ہے جناب مشتبہ حیدر صاحب سے وہ ممبر پر آواز بلند تر صلوات۔ بسم اللہ۔
صلوات پڑھو سائیں دی ذات تے۔ ماشاءاللہ کافی مجمع بلند آواز نال صلوات۔ اعوذ باللہ من الشیطان الرجیم بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم۔ پھر بھی صلوات۔ ایمان کی تازگی ہے کہو یا علی مدد، ایمان کی تازگی ہے کہو یا علی مدد، ایک شرط زندگی ہے کہو یا علی مدد، مومن کی بندگی ہے کہو یا علی مدد، غیروں سے دل لگی ہے کہو یا علی مدد۔ صلوات پڑھو سائیں ذات تے۔ پھر بھی صلوات۔ آجا تو من لے پیر علی سردار، آجا تو من لے پیر علی سردار، آجا تو من لے پیر علی سردار، آکھیا نبی نے میرا وسیع، آکھیا نبی نے میرا وسیع، بعد میرے اے ممبر دا حقدار، آباد رہو سلامت رہو صلوات پڑھو سائیں ذات تے۔ سرکار محمد مصطفیٰ دا فرمان، ایندا میرا نور ایک رجس تو پاکے، ایندے قبضے دے وچ ساری کائنات، ایندا میرا نور ایک رجس تو پاکے، ایندے قبضے دے وچ ساری کائنات، رولا مقاماں میں گل سمجھاواں میں، رولا مقاماں میں گل سمجھاواں میں، اندے سر سجدی سونی میری دستار، आबाद रहो सलामत रहो सलवात पढ़ो साईं ज़ात ते। आ गली गली आख देने अली दे दीवाने, अली दा सवाल तेरा सारा ए जहाने। गली गली आख दे अली दे दीवाने, अली दा सवाल तेरा सारा ए जहाने। नबी दा चैन विच रहने, नबी दा चैन विच रहने। रब ने बनाया कौसर दा मुख्तारे। या अली सलामत रहो सलवात पढ़ो साईं ज़ात ते। आदितियाँ नबी ने इनू सब मुख्तारियाँ, मर्जियाँ रब इंदी नींदरा तू वारियाँ। बख्तियाँ नबी ने इनू सब मुख्तारियाँ, मर्जियाँ रब इंदी नींदरा तू वारियां। जो भी बुलांदा है मदद को आंदा है, जो भी बुलांदा है मदद को आंदा है। डुबदे बेड़े नू दे आण के तारे। मेहरबानी जनाब सलवात पढ़ो साईं ज़ात दे। मेरे बुजुर्गों का लिखा कसीदा में पेश कर रहा। मौला हुसैन इन्हां पाक दिनां दा सदका उन्हां दे दरजात बुलंद करे। ओ लिख देन दिल नाले जिन्ना कीती आके ताबेदारी अली दे दवारे बह के जिंदगी गुजारिए। दिल नाल जिन्ना कीती आके ताबेदारी अली दे दवारे बह के जिंदगी गुजारिए। कोई कलंदर कोई सिकंदर, कोई कलंदर कोई सिकंदर। पाक अली दे रासख फैज ने सारे। कुछ खा की सरहद कूफा दी, कुछ सामराते खुरसाने। कुछ खा की सरहद कूफा दी, कुछ सामराते खुरसाने। चंद मीत मदीने दफन होए जिमें दफन होंदे मेहमान। कुठे पुत्र रसूल दे दीन पिछे ई गाल दा है अरमान। अरमान बहु खातून दियां धियां वन दफनियां मुल्क बेगाने। ओ चुप उंगल बनीन दे हायो बचड़े दी, सादात दे मान मुका गई। चुप देख अब्बास दी शामियां दी, जुड़ लुटड़ कीते मनशा गए। ओ बेगिदन ख़याम च आयो आवन दी, किवें जुरत शिमर को आ गई। या गाल शबीर दे बचड़े को और रात 40 साल रवा गई। ओ मेरे शाह दे मातमदार दुनिया ते कोई गम ना वेखो सैग में हुसैन दे। शिमर कमीना आया खैमे दे विच, कमीना आके आदे ओ केड़ी भेड़िए आयो बागी दी जैकुगा दी ते आ माणे। जे दिल होवे सता सड़ गिने ओ मैं करना है सारे गुरियां। शिमरा दा मैं सुनिया है वो भाई वाले अद दी गिने हिस्से दा सामाने। पावे खत कड़ियां बर जाइयां को ओ साढ़े हाकम दा ऐलाने। शिमर कमीना लुट फारग थी क्यों जाते आए जिथे सरकार वफा दी लाश। कमीना ताना मार के आदा जै बीबी दे आयो पर्दे कीते तड़ी हाई मशहूर वफाए। अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली अला मुहम्मद व आले
برائے خوشنودی محمد و آل محمد صلوات. اعوذ باللہ السمیع العلیم ومن الشیطان الرجیم. بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم. رب اشرح لی صدری ویسر لی امری واحلل عقدۃ من لسانی یفقہوا قولی. بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم. الحمد للہ رب العالمین. الصلاۃ والسلام علی نبیہ محمد المصطفیٰ وآل الطیبین الطاہرین المعصومین. صلوات بر محمد و آل محمد. اللہم صلی علی محمد. نعرہ تکبیر، نعرہ تکبیر، نعرہ رسالت، نعرہ رسالت، نعرہ حیدری، نعرہ حیدری. حسینیت، حسینیت، یزیدیت، یزیدیت. اہل بیت کے دشمنوں پہ لعنت. بی بی پاک سلام اللہ علیہ قاتلوں پہ لعنت. بی بی پاک کا گھر جلانے والوں پہ لعنت. بی بی پاک تمام زندہ مردہ دشمنوں پہ لعنت. صلوات بر محمد و آل محمد. جنت جسے کہتے ہیں وہ حیدر کی گلی ہے. جنت جسے کہتے ہیں وہ حیدر کی گلی ہے. جنت جسے کہتے ہیں وہ حیدر کی گلی ہے. جنت جسے کہتے ہیں وہ حیدر کی گلی ہے. یہ بات قلندر کی میرے دل کو لگی ہے. یہ بات قلندر کی میرے دل کو لگی ہے. ہم قبر میں جانے سے کہاں ڈرتے ہیں لوگوں. ہم قبر میں جانے سے کہاں ڈرتے ہیں لوگوں. اس موت کے پردے میں ملاقات علی ہے. بسم اللہ کرام سواری مولا دعاواں قبول فرمان. اس موت کے پردے میں ملاقات علی ہے. صلوات. معراج کے پردے میں کبھی غور کیا کر. معراج کے پردے میں حضرت حسن لیدی صاحب نے کسی نے پوچھا کہ سرکار معراج دا مفہوم دسو. معراج کی ہے سرکار فرمایا کی دساں. میم تے عین دے راج نو معراج آخدے نے. معراج کے پردے میں کبھی غور کیا کر. معراج کے پردے میں کبھی غور کیا کر. اس پار محمد ہیں تو اس پار علی ہے. نعرہ حیدری. مشتاق ہے جنت بھی عزادار کی مولا. مشتاق ہے جنت بھی عزادار کی مولا. جنت کی ضمانت تیرے بہلول سے لی ہے. جنت کی ضمانت تیرے بہلول سے لی ہے. جنت جسے کہتے ہیں وہ حیدر کی گلی ہے. حیدری جزاک اللہ مولا قبول فرمان. جلتا ہے جو شہباز قلندر سے وہ سن لے. جلتا ہے جو شہباز قلندر سے وہ سن لے. شہباز کو پرواز علی نے ہی تو دی ہے. شہباز کو پرواز علی نے ہی تو دی ہے. یہ بات محمد کی ہے میں نے تو نہیں کی، یہ بات محمد کی ہے میں نے تو نہیں کی، جس جس کا ولی میں ہوں علی اس کا ولی ہے، جس جس واہ جی واہ، جس جس کا ولی میں ہوں علی اس کا ولی ہے، بی بی کے گواہوں میں میرا نام بھی لکھ لو، بی بی کے گواہوں میں میرا نام بھی لکھ لو، جو اس کے مقابل ہے خطا کار وہی ہے، جو اس کے مقابل ہے خطا کار وہی ہے۔ بی پاک کے تمام زندہ مردہ دشمن باللعنت، ہر ماتمی کہتا ہے علی حق ہے، علی حق، ہر ماتمی کہتا ہے علی حق ہے، علی حق، دھڑکن جو بطول اس کے علی سے ہی بنی ہے، دھڑکن جو بطول اس کے علی سے ہی بنی ہے، نعرہ حیدری۔ مبارک ہو سب کو اہل ولا، خدا کا ولی آ گیا، خدا کا ولی آ گیا، صلوات بر محمد و آل محمد، باری دیگر صلوات، اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد۔ اٹھانے لگا ہوں قلم آج میں، اٹھانے لگا ہوں قلم آج میں، نبی کی ثنا کے لیے، نبی کی ثنا کے لیے، ضروری بہت ہے ثنائے نبی، ضروری بہت ہے ثنائے نبی، خدا کی رضا کے لیے، محمد مصطفیٰ کے لیے، نعرہ حیدری۔ محبوب اگر تجھے نہ بناتا تو کچھ نہ بناتا، کبھی نہ زمین کی یہ چادر بچھاتا، اگر مصطفیٰ کے قدم نہ بناتا، اگر دھڑکنوں میں محمد نہ ہوتے، زمانے کے سینے میں دل نہ سجاتا، بنائے ہیں میں نے یہ دونوں جہاں، بنائے ہیں میں نے یہ دونوں جہاں، فقط مصطفیٰ کے لیے۔ میرے مولا سے کسی نے کہا سرکار علیہ السلام آپ کو عین اللہ کیوں کہا گیا ہے؟ تو سرکار فرماتے ہیں زیر لب مسکرائے اور فرمایا یہ آنکھیں ہیں در اصل آنکھیں خدا کی، میں اپنے لیے اسے کب دیکھتا ہوں، خدا دیکھنا چاہے جب مصطفیٰ کو، میں چہرہ محمد کا تب دیکھتا ہوں، کہ بے دل نے دی اپنی آنکھیں مجھے، کہ بے دل نے دی اپنی آنکھیں مجھے، رخ دل ربا کے لیے، محمد مصطفیٰ کے لیے۔ حضور علیہ السلام شان پاک پہ بلند آواز صلوات۔ حجاب خدا اس ردا کی کنی ہے، کنی یعنی کونا، हिजाब खुदा इस रिदा की कनी है, यही बे बदन के बदन पे तनी है। जो पर्दों की खिलकत से पहले खुदा था, ज़माने में ये उसका पर्दा बनी है। ज़मीं पे उतारी गई ये रिदा, ज़मीं पे उतारी गई ये रिदा, नबी की शिफा के लिए। बिस्मिल्लाह। नबी की शिफा के लिए, नबी की शिफा के लिए। मोहम्मद की तस्वीर 14 बनाई, और इनके लिए फिर ये दुनिया सजाई है। 14 मोहम्मद अली भी हैं 14, ज़माने को लेके समझ ही ना आई। मेरे नूर के टुकड़े 14 बने, यानी कि जेड़े भी नूर के टुकड़े जो वेखो तो तुहानू नूर नज़र आवेगा, कोई छोटा ही कोई बड़ा है, लेकिन है सारे नूर ने। मेरे नूर के टुकड़े 14 बने, हाँ फ़ख्रे खुदा के लिए, हाँ फ़ख्रे खुदा के लिए। हकीर फ़कीर नाचीज़ ने खाकसार ने एक मिसरा अपने को लैड किया, एक कलाम किसी होर दा मौला उन्होंने अगर जिंदा मौजूद से सलामती और तौफीकात खैर इजाफा फरमाए, और अगर चल बसे ने तो उन्होंने अपनी जवार रहमत जगह दे। एक बच्ची है साड़ी निदा बीबी, उन्हें न्याज तोरी है, मौला करीम अपनी बारगाह च उन्होंने न्याज कबूल फरमान, अहले सुन्नत देने तो मौला उन अपने बच्चे अरसलान दियाँ खुशियाँ वेखनियाँ नसीब फरमाए ने। मौला सिवाय गम मजलूम दे और कोई गम न दे ने। नबी गर नाते अरश से फरश पर, तो कोई भी दुनिया में ना सांस लेता। मेरा भाई अकीदा है। नबी गर नाते अरश से फरश पर, तो कोई भी दुनिया में ना सांस लेता। हुई खास तेरी अता इस जहां पर, किसी को है कब कोई महबूब देता। मोहम्मद हुए अब हमारे सदा। अल्लाह जी तुसी हजूर पाक नूं साडा महबूब बना के टोरिया ते हुणे साडे ने। मोहम्मद हुए अब हमारे सदा, हमेशा हमेशा के लिए, हमेशा हमेशा के लिए, हमेशा हमेशा के लिए। ज़रूरी बहुत है सनाए नबी, खुदा की रज़ा के लिए, खुदा की रज़ा के लिए। सलवात बर मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद। बारी दीगर सलवात। जिस शहजादे की अज शहादत है, इस मासूम की जिंदगी सफ़रां विच गुजरी है। रजब के महीने च ही सरकार की आमद है, तो 28 रजब नूं ही किस दिन है सरकार अलैहिस्सलाम का सफ़र शुरू हो गया। चंद एक दिन जेड़े मदीने रहे ने सो रहे ने, बाकी मेरे मौला हुसैन अलैहिस्सलाम ने कोई ऐसा रिश्ता नहीं छड्डिया जिहदी कुर्बानी नहीं दी। लोग इतराज़ करते हैं कि करबला दे विच शहादतां होंदियां से पईयां, किहड़ी मेहंदी ते किहड़े सेहरे ते किहड़ा विआह। वसीयत सी इमाम हसन अलैहिस्सलाम दी कि जदों करबला वाक़या होवे, मेरे बच्चे दे नाल अपनी बेटी का निकाह करना है, तुसीं शादी करनी है। और शादी करने की एक वजह यह भी सी कि दामाद जिहड़ा वो भी कुर्बान करना सी, दामाद का रिश्ता रहिंदा सी। इस वास्ते इमाम हसन अलैहिस्सलाम दे शहजादे कासिम अलैहिस्सलाम दा अकद होया, तो सरकार अलैहिस्सलाम जिहड़े ने वो भी कुर्बान होए। और ये मासूम जिहड़ा है, ये सारियां तो शीर खार सब तो छोटा ਉਲਮਾ ਅਕਸਰ ਦੱਸਦੇ ਨੇ ਕਿ 10ਵੀਂ ਮੁਹੱਰਮ ਦਾ ਦਿਨ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਵਰਨਾ 9 ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਕਰਬਲਾ, 10ਵੀਂ ਦਾ ਦਿਨ ਇਸ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਲਿਆ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਦਿਨ ਸ਼ਾਰਟ ਸੀ 6 ਮਹੀਨੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ। ਇਸਲਾਮ ਦੇ 6 ਮਹੀਨੇ ਦੀ ਕੁਰਬਾਨੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਉਹ ਘੱਟ ਤੋਂ ਘੱਟ ਏਜ ਦੀ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ। ਮੈਂ ਸਦਕੇ ਜਾਂ ਸੁਬਹਾਨ ਅੱਲਾ। ਨਾ ਉਠਾਓ अली असगरी को ना उठाओ, अली असगरी को मेरे सीने से ना उठाओ। ये न मांगेगा कभी पानी, कसम खाती हूँ देख के लोरी से कुरान की सुलाती हूँ। इस पे ना तीर चलाओ, इस पे ना तीर चलाओ, कहो कमीने से ना उठाओ। छोड़ना जाना अली असगर दुआ करती हूँ, मैं तेरी बहन सकीना हूँ आहें भरती हूँ। मेरा जीना मेरा मरना, मेरा जीना मेरा मरना है तेरे जीने से ना उठाओ। इसकी अनमोल शहादत पे जहाँ रोएगा, छूट जाएगी कमो सहरा कांप जाएगा। ये शहादत का मुंतज़िर है, ये शहादत का मुंतज़िर है 6 महीने से ना उठाओ। खस्ता शाय सरवर में ज़म हुए हो, कब्र तेरी को कहाँ ढूंढे कहाँ सोए हो। मौला शबीर सदा दे, मौला शबीर सदा दे, कहो नगीने से ना उठाओ। दिन गुजरता है रो रो के, शाम ढलती है। शाम दे जिंदान विच बीबी ज़ैनब जनाब रुबाब नूं पुछदे, मेरी भैन इस वक्त सुबह दे वेले की ढूंढदे पे? बीबी फरमांदे ने, मेरी भैन अली असगर दे दुध दा वेला होया, मैं दुध बच्चे भी ढूंढनी है सज्जे खब्बे। दिन गुजरता है रो रो के, शाम ढलती है। चौंक जाती है तेरी माँ जो करवट बदलती है। किसको लोरी सुनाए, किसको लोरी सुनाए, लगा के सीने से ना उठाओ। अली असगर को ना उठाओ। आस बाकी है तेरी अब तक सुगरा मुज़्तर का, लेके आ जा अली अकबर मेरे असगर का। अब भी आती है एक सदा اب بھی آتی ہے یہ صدا ایک مدینے سے نہ اٹھاؤ علی اکبر کو نہ اٹھاؤ میرے سینے سے نہ اٹھاؤ اللہ لعنت اللہ علی القوم الظالمین وسیعلم الذین ظلموا ایام منقلبین ینقلبون اہل بیت کے دشمنوں پہ لعنت بے شمار۔ میری درخواست ہے جناب قبلہ مولانا محمد تقوی صاحب ممبر پاک پر جلوہ افروز ہونے کے لیے تشریف لائیں۔ مولانا صاحب نے بلا ہونے اندر پلیز صلوات بار محمد و آل محمد۔ اجڑی ہوئی دنیا ہے اجڑا ہے جہاں سارا محمد کا نواسا ہے کربل میں ہے جو مارا اجڑی ہوئی دنیا ہے اجڑا ہے جہاں سارا سہروز کا پیاسا ہے اور چور ہے زخموں سے چلاتی ہے روتی ہے لپٹی ہوئی قدموں سے مر جاؤں گی بن تیرے بابا تو میرا پیارا اجڑی ہوئی دنیا ہے اجڑا ہے جہاں سارا۔ شہادت تو بعد پہلی دفعہ جڑے بی بی پاک دے تند پاک ہتھاں دے وچ مولا حسین علیہ السلام دا سر مبارک آیا تو بی بی نے رو کے آکھیا بابا منشمر نے بڑا ماریا ہے سر کاٹ کے لاشوں سے نیزوں پہ چڑھایا ہے مقتل میں پڑی لاشوں پہ گھوڑوں کو دوڑایا ہے بے گور و کفن بابا چلتا نہیں کوئی چارہ اجڑی ہوئی دنیا ہے اجڑا ہے جہاں سارا کھاتی ہوں تماچے میں اور خاک پہ سوتی ہوں کر یاد تجھے بابا دن رات میں روتی ہوں تیرے بعد مجھے بابا ہر ایک نے ہے مارا اجڑی ہوئی دنیا ہے اجڑا ہے جہاں سارا۔ اہل بیت کے دشمنوں پہ لعنت۔ اب میری درخواست ہے جناب مولانا قبلہ محمد تقوی مدظلہ عالی میں میرے پاک پر جلوہ افروز ہونے کے لیے تشریف لائیں۔ ان کی صحت سلامتی کے لیے بآواز بلند صلوات اللہم صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم۔ نعرہ تکبیر نعرہ تکبیر نعرہ رسالت نعرہ رسالت نعرہ حیدری نعرہ حیدری حسینیت حسینیت یزیدیت یزیدیت خانوادہ ابو طالب علیہ السلام پہ بلند تر صلوات۔
اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد۔
اپنی اپنی دعاؤں کی قبولیت کے لیے بآواز بلند صلوات۔
لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي لم يتخذ ولدا ولم يكن له شريك في الملك ولم يكن له ولي من الذل وكبره تكبيرا. ثم الصلاة والسلام وتحية الإكرام على الرسول النبي الأمي الذي أرسله بالحق بشيرا ونذيرا وداعيا إلى الله بإذنه سراجا منيرا سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين الغر الميامين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من يومنا هذا إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل لا أسألكم عليه أجرا إلا المودة في القربى. صدق الله العلي العظيم. Please recite the salawat. The ayah that has been recited is the ayah from Surah Shura, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to tell the believing men and women, the Muslims and the mu'mineen, that they are in debt to Allah and they are in debt to the Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the debt and what they owe Allah and what they owe the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the love of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salatu wasalam. We've spoken a few nights. Many nights have passed and only remain a few more nights. What I've noticed in the Urdu Majalis, you have one theme, one topic, and then the Khatib or the Muhaddar, he speaks on that one particular topic and he carries on. But with the English Majlis, what usually happens is that every single night there's a subject distinct and a topic different. But this ayah was so important to be spoken about, and the many aspects that this ayah can be approached, this ayah from Surah Shura, where Allah commands us to love the family of the Prophet, that it was decided that this ayah be spoken in, and this ayah settle in the hearts and the minds of those sitting here. Anytime you're questioned, anytime you're asked, why Muharram, why Azadari, why Jashan, why Milad, this ayah is at the forefront. You understand Ajr of Risala because Allah has asked us to do so. We are in debt to the Prophet and we try in every living moment to fulfill that debt. As I mentioned 2 nights ago, where the angels, when they ascend to the heavens, and the other angels inquire, he says, a very significant or a very distinct scent is coming off you. You're perfumed as if you smell different. We haven't smelled this smell before. And they said we were in the gathering of the mu'mineen where they were making dhikr of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimu salatu salam. And because we're with them and in the company of them, this is the feature or the characteristic that you feel and you sense. And then the other angels, the other set of angels, seek permission from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to then descend. And then they're told, he says, this gathering is done. These people, they have gone home. They're not here right now. They said at least the place where they were making the dhikr of the Ahlul Bayt is there. We shall go and we shall make benefit from the nurani or the light that is left remaining in that place. Anybody who comes here to the Husayniyah comes with the niyyah, I go to the Majlis of Imam Hussein alayhi salatu salam, qurbatan ila Allah. Yes, I go to Imam Hussein, qurbatan ila Allah, so I can get closer and closer and gain proximity towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that my children can understand, I let Imam al-Hussein alayhi salatu salam to be the springboard through which I then get to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything I do qurbatan ila Allah, so I can gain proximity towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I become close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How? Through the dhikr of Imam Hussein, through the teachings of Imam Hussein, through the remembrance of Imam Hussein. This is an ibadah. anything you do with the niyyah to gain proximity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is an ibadah. Now this ibadah, some ibadat, some worship, some acts of worship, you do on your own, like fasting. Everybody may be fasting, but nobody fasts in jama'ah. One man can be fasting, the other person won't find out. But like prayers, namaz, you pray in jama'ah and you can pray furada. Azadari the same way. You can do in the comfort of your home, but when it is done in jama'ah like this, it has a different effect. When the mu'mineen leave their houses, they come, they sit down and they do this ibadah, everybody together, then you reach a new or a higher level of understanding. The riwayah goes, Man baka wa abka aw tabaka. The one who cries for Al-Hussein or the one who makes cry. So you have a muhaddar or a radud or a nauha khan or someone who does a mercy or a salam. He's talking about an incident. What he's doing is he's providing you with the aid so that your heart can connect to the plains of Karbala. Because he's put very beautifully, very nicely in words what he's understood from tarikh, what he's understood from history, what he's understood from narrations, in a poem form. Sometimes even an artist would express through his art. You've seen this going around, many pictures that depict the incident of Karbala. You have a horse surrounded by these people who want to kill the one who's riding the horse. You have a father carrying a little baby. All these things, all these expressions, when you look at them and your heart connects to the Ahlul Bayt alayhimu salatu wasalam, if the niyyah is khalis, the one crying is doing an ibadah, the one who helps you cry also does the ibadah. Or the Imam says tabaka. How do people understand tabaka? He says, if you can't cry and you cannot cry, make a face as if you're crying. जिसको हमारे यहाँ कहते हैं रोने वाली सूरत बनाओ. Why? People think, this is a question people ask. He says, what does tabaka mean? He says, I don't feel like crying. I'm not crying at the moment. Why do I have to make a face as if I'm crying? If there's a psychologist here, if anybody studies psychology, obviously can speak better on the subject. But you know when they say when you're in a low mood and you're experiencing depression? People, human beings, go through ups and downs. People have good days and they have bad days. And the days you have bad days and you're feeling low and you're feeling down, you don't have any ambition or motivation, what they tell you is, why don't you freshen up? Why don't you wear a pair of new clothes or something that makes you happy? Eat food that gives you comfort. Go to places that you find comfortable and peace in. You don't feel like doing something, but you create around you an environment that then sustains, and then it helps you grow into that mindset of a better mood, of a lighter mood. You may not feel like crying alone. Wear the black clothes. Come to the Husayniyah. See the mu'mineen. Meet the one who's reciting. Sit down and do the azadari. Let the mood to then dictate. Let the hal to then dictate where you need to go to. Sometimes it is very difficult for one man to stand up and go to Imam Hussain alayhi salatu salam, but when there's a few people and there's a group of people, then it becomes easier. So this is baka, abka, and tabaka. This tamheed was because I had to make an announcement as a request to the sisters. The request is this: because this is an ibadah, the more you do to help people connect with Imam Hussein, the more your ajr will increase, the more your reward will increase. You then become that person who takes caravans to Imam Hussein. You're the one who's taking zuwar to Imam al-Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam. What are we doing here? We start our majlis with hadith al-Qisa. We start our majalis with the dhikr of the Quran. We make a small Karbala in this Husayniyah here, and we announce with all our being, Hussein, no matter the place or the time, we are with you. Ya laytana kunna ma'akum nafuza ma'akum. No matter where we are, Imam al-Hussein, the distance prevents us from being in Karbala right now. We shall make a Karbala over here. We shall talk about your shuhada. where we'll talk about your friends, we'll talk about your sacrifices. This here, right here, all of us, join together in the love of Imam Hussein, coming together for the love of Imam Hussein, in this Husayniyah. So my request is, a few complaints come from the sister side, that there's a lot of noise and people want to listen to the muhadara when the Sayyid after me is speaking or different announcements are made. So please, for your sake and for the sake of others, not everybody always feels like doing an ibadah at a particular time. Maybe you're not in the mood. If somebody is here to listen to the majlis, make it such. Be considerate and make the environment conducive for them to listen to the majlis. Sometimes you're not in the hall. Sometimes your state dictates otherwise. Sometimes you feel like doing something else. It's fine. You're not in the hall right now. At least allow for other people who are here to listen to the speech, who are here to listen to the matam, who are here to do matam, leave room for them. If you're not participating, facilitate. If you're not facilitating, at least do not be in a hindrance or a disturbance. Please recite a salawat on the Prophet Muhammad. When I mentioned about coming to the Husayniyah, this is not unfounded. This is not khitaba. This is not me coming out with points. Everything that is being said has root in tradition and narration, in hadith, in Quran, and in scripture. These are teachings from the Ahlul Bayt ﷺ, as witnessed by the companions of the Ahlul Bayt, by those ulama who have dedicated their lives to study what the Ahlul Bayt ﷺ has to offer, and then to give it to us, so we may benefit in this dunya and in the akhirah. An incident as such is with a famous mufassir of the Quran. One would argue and say the biggest mufassir of the Quran of our time, Allama Tabatabai. He has a tafsir called Tafsir al-Mizan. The miza, or the distinguishing factor of the Tafsir al-Mizan, is that it is a philosophical tafsir. It is also a traditional tafsir. It has riwayat. And what it does is it uses the ayat of the Quran, it uses the Arabic language, and he puts it in a language which is easy to intellectualize. So you connect with the Quran more. This is Allama Tabatabai. He's a teacher of the highest of ranks in Hausa. Many books to his name. He has many students all over the world in many different languages. There are Japanese people who are students. There are Christian people who are students. There are people in the US, people in Canada who are students of Allama Tabatabai, writing books in different universities. He's a man who was well versed in the ulum of Muhammad and al-Muhammad, and he was also a man who was a teacher of students from academia, Allama Tabatabai. He goes to a majlis. So in Iran, in Qom, this was a practice. The first majlis would happen on the 10th of Muharram. There's no dars, there's no lectures or classes in Hausa. But the days before and the days after, they would have a majlis before the dars. Allama Tabatabai goes to this majlis, he's invited, he goes and he sits inside the house. And during the majlis, as the muhaddar is speaking, as the khatib is giving his khutbah, as the person speaking is delivering his speech, his students notice Allama gets up and he sits in the other portion of the house. So let's say, for instance, he entered the house and he sat in a corner, and then he stood up and then he moved further in. So his students asked him after, it's like, Sayyid, what was wrong where you were sitting? You were sitting in a spot, in a place, why did you decide to stand up and move to another spot? Allama Tabatabai says, he says, I noticed that where I was sitting was the new portion of the house, and where the khatib, or the one speaking, where the mimbar was, is the older portion of the house. So he says, you move from the new portion of the house inwards towards the older portion of the house. Why did you do that? He says, because the older portion of the house, the bricks have witnessed the aza more than the new portion of the house. The bricks have seen more tears flow than the newer portion of the house. The bricks have heard Hussein, Hussein more than the newer portion of the house. The bricks, the barakah of Azadari, the barakah of Hussein, it settles in the walls. Do not think it is only for us humans to benefit. Do not think it is only for humans to benefit. The jinns benefit, the malak benefit, the trees benefit, the grass benefit. Every time you say this beautiful name, this pak name, an angel, what you're doing is you're pulling Allah's rahmah. You're pulling the power Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has, and He's kept it for the lovers Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam. You're attracting it towards yourself. And when you attract that power, it manifests in the surroundings, in the areas around you. One of the barakat, please recite the salawat on the Sometimes many things look very basic. They look very non-important, easily ignored, negligible. But one of the ulama in Pakistan, he gives a good example. He says, you know why these people, or people who oppose julus and azadari and matamdari, especially the processions that come out on the street, and they say, you know why they oppose us? He says, no. He says, I've understood one of the wisdoms why this happens. Why do they oppose it? He says, you see children, little kids, when there's a festival in town, or let's say it's the World Cup season, right? Every child wants to participate in that season. He wants to wear that t-shirt, he has his team is supporting, he's in the job or the environment of what? He's got the football fever right now. That ends, something else starts, that ends, something else starts. He noticed in Pakistan and India, he says, I asked the fellow, he says, why are you so against this? He says, what happens is, when you come out, a group of you, 50 of you, 100 of you, 500 of you, walking in julus and azadari, you go through our alleyways, and you go through our streets, and you pass by our areas, and everybody is saying, Hussein, 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 Hussein. Our little kids in our houses don't know what is happening. So once the julus has left, our little kid comes out, and he brings up a stick, and he says, Hussein, Hussein. He repeats the same thing you're doing on the streets inside our houses. That little child. So the father says, I'm telling people, do not go to the julus, but because he's standing at the window or he's seen it on TV, and this is how children are. They see something and they repeat it. He says, now the julus has gone. It's been 2 hours, 3 hours, 2 days, but the child in the house will repeat what he's seen outside. So when he sees Hussein, 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 he does the same thing. He says, this is why we have a problem with julus. Please recite the salawat on Muhammad wa alihi. So some things we may not consider, some things we do not know, some things we may think to be very little or low, has an effect so deep and so beyond, and so the love for Imam Hussein alayhi salatu salam. I would like to put this hadith in front of you, and I would ask you to go ask scholars that you know to expound more. So because I know I will not be able to give the haqq of this particular hadith in this one setting. You have to think about this, you have to keep going back, you have to ask ulama, and you have to ask them to please expound on this, explain this, teach us what it means and the depths of this hadith. The Imam alayhi salatu salam says, Ala wa man mata ala hubbi ali Muhammadin mata shahida. Anyone who dies on the love of Al Muhammad dies a shaheed. Okay? Man mata ala hubbi ali Muhammadin mata shahida. Anybody who dies on the love of Al Muhammad dies a shaheed. एक सवाल मैं उर्दू में भी चाह रहा हूँ ताकि आप उर्दू उलमा से पूछें, इंग्लिश में कहूँगा ताकि इंग्लिश उलमा से पूछें, लेकिन इस मसले को अपने लिए हल करें. मन माता अला हुब्ब आली मुहम्मदिन माता शहीदा. जो भी मरा मोहब्बत में मोहम्मद व आली मोहम्मद की, वो शहीद मरा. अब मैं आपसे सवाल ही पूछता हूँ, and I'll ask this question to each and every one of you. Does the Imam say that man mata, whoever dies, has to be a Shia? Man mata ala hubbi ali Muhammadin. Does he have to be a Muslim even? Does it say anywhere in the hadith? Does the Imam bring any qaid or any condition on this hadith? Man mata ala hubbi ali Muhammadin. Anybody who dies with the love of the Ahlul Bayt in his heart. Does he even have to be insan? Mata shahida. He dies the death of a shaheed. The shaheed has maratib. There are gradations to shaheed. The maqamat or shaheed are different. This place for Hussein, this is a place of gathering, a place of love. This is where love is manifest. Anybody who dies and has the love of Imam Hussein in his heart dies a shaheed. He dies witnessing a truth. He dies with a truth. It is not necessarily that him in his lifetime will reach or arrive at that truth. It is not necessary that him in his lifetime may reach or arrive at that truth. We talk about Islam, Kalma, and all those things. But you know what will happen? We, as human beings, we see life and time to be linear like this. A man is born on a day, he lives the life he lives, and he dies on a set day, yes? Allah does not see that way. A man who dies with the love of the Ahlul Bayt in his heart dies a witness to a truth. He may not have arrived at the point where he accepts Islam, but in his generations, because he has this love for Imam Hussein, there will rise from his generation someone who is a lover of the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu wasalam, who on the day of judgment will become a shafi' for his grandfather. नहीं बात सुन नहीं मैं समझाता हूँ भी आपको. The Imam alayhi salatu wasalam says, Shi'atuna khuliqu min fadil tinatina. We'll come back to this. Please write the salawat on the Prophet Muhammad. I'll give an easier example because I see the faces, they're like a little perplexed. It's difficult. You've heard when the Amir alayhi salatu wasalam would kill people in battle, in war, when people would come and attack Ali ibn Abi Talib and Amir al-Mu'minin would kill them, a friend of the Amir decided that, you know what, let's have a healthy competition with Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam. Let us have a healthy competition. He says, Maula, आज आपने इतने वासिले जहन्नुम किए, मेरा अदद जो है वो कम और ज़्याद तकरीबन बराबर है. कम ही है लेकिन बराबर है अदद. You've heard this incident before? That in battle, Ali, you've killed such and so many people. Me as well, I've killed, a number closer to your number. The Amir says, yes, you killed anyone who came to your way. Anyone who came attacking or charging at you, you killed him. It says, Ali did not kill anyone that came charging at him. Ali saw if in his lineage, 5, 6, 7 generations down is a lover of myself, Ali let him go. अब समझे कि मोमिन के नूर में और नुत्फ़े में कितनी ताकत होती है. अभी वो दुनिया में आया नहीं है. That मोमिन is not in this world right now. जो 7 नस्लों के बाद आने वाला है, अगर आप कैलकुलेशन करें, अभी उनके अम्मा अब्बा नहीं मिले, उनके दादा दादी से मुलाकात नहीं हुई, वो एक पूरा सिलसिला शजरा नहीं है. अली करीम जुल्फ़िकार को पता चल जाता है कहाँ से रुख मोड़ना है, क्योंकि आने वाला अली का चाहने वाला है. समझ रहे हैं आप? तो अब जो मैं बात कह रहा हूँ, मन माता अला हुब्बि आली मुहम्मद माता शहीदा, उसमें कहाँ शर्त इस्लाम की रखी है? वो जब मोहब्बत आल मोहम्मद में उसकी दुनिया से चला जाएगा, रुखसत हो जाएगा, तो यकीनन उसकी आल में एक ऐसी शख्स, ऐसी हस्ती आएगी, क्योंकि उसने मोहब्बत की ना आल मोहम्मद से, जो उसकी नजात का बाइस बनेगी, जो गुजर गया है. समझे बात को? एक शख्स है, मसीही है, इमाम हादी अलैहिस्सलाम के सहाबी, सलावत भेजता हूँ. A man who's a Christian man, he knows Imam al-Hadi, Imam Naqi alayhi salatu wasalam. And he comes to Imam Naqi alayhi salatu wasalam and he brings gifts to Imam Naqi, and the Imam alayhi salatu wasalam takes gifts from him. The Imam, there's no like Rafiddin, the Imam knows he knows who I am, and the Imam knows he's a Christian man. And they have a very good, cordial relationship. This will apply for people who live here in this country with different religions and different societies. This is the character of Imam Naqi alayhi salatu wasalam. Imam says, I have my value system. My grandfather has told me how to behave with people. I don't lie, I don't cheat. I don't take what does not belong to me. I behave cordially. If he needs, a human being needs help and I can help him, I help him. I do not break the law. I maintain peace. I enforce peace. I live in society how an honorable man should live in society, and I deal with people how I should deal with human beings. Imam Naqi alayhi salatu wasalam dealt with this Christian man exactly how the Imam would deal with a human being. And the man says to Imam Naqi alayhi salatu wasalam, the Imam says to Imam Naqi alayhi salatu wasalam, he says, I have a lot of love for you in my heart. I'll have a lot of love for you, O Hadi, in my heart. This man's a Christian man, and he leaves. So someone who is a companion of Imam al-Hadi asked him, like, this man is not even a Muslim. ये तो मुसलमान भी नहीं है. आपकी मोहब्बत का इसको क्या फ़ायदा होगा? आपकी मोहब्बत का, his love for you, Ahlul Bayt, how will he benefit? This man is not a Muslim. He says, his capacity, his zarf, his trajectory in life will not let him accept Islam because he does not have the capacity to understand what Islam and all of what Islam entails is. He will reach an end, but he will not be Muslim. But in his son will be a very avid lover of myself and my son. वो मुसलमान होगा. क्यों मुसलमान होगा? क्योंकि इसका अब्बा हमसे मोहब्बत करता था. These are realities in life. These are realities in life. ये हक़ाइक़ हैं, ये तकदीर बदलने वाली ज़ात हैं. मैं आपसे क्यों कह रहा हूँ अहले बैत के पास आए? मैं क्यों हर रोज़ एक ही आयत को बार बार सुना रहा हूँ आपको, ताकि इस बात को समझें, जो कल नहीं आया वो आज आएगा, जो आज नहीं आएगा वो आने वाले कल आएगा. सब आएंगे. कहाँ पे? मोहम्मद व आले मोहम्मद के पास. What did I say 4 nights ago? الناس نيام إذا ماتوا انتبهوا. People are sleeping. When they die, they will awake and they will understand and they'll see reality for what reality is. This is what the Amir said. And this is what the poet says. इंसान को बेदार तो हो लेने दो, हर कौम पुकारेगी हमारे हैं हुसैन. इंसान सो रही है, इंसानियत सो रही है. जब इंसान बेदार हो जाएगा, when the humanity is awakened, when humanity understands what humans are, what humanity is, automatically everyone's going to turn towards Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam, because he manifested all the values of humankind, how they were to be manifested in this world. You understand? But what dictates that is our behavior towards ourselves. When I say ourselves, is me in my person, and you also by extension is myself. The mu'mineen are one ruh, different bodies. It's a hadith from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. हमारी अपनी ज़ात तो कोई है नहीं. ये जो आपको बदन नज़र आ रहे हैं, ये तो मसलहतन मुख्तलिफ अबदान है, क्योंकि इस दुनिया में रहने का तकाज़ा ये है. अब इसको आप फ़लसफ़ी बात समझें या किसी हवाले समझें, लेकिन समझें इसको कि इस जो मटीरियल है, जो मैटर है, जो 3 dimensional वर्ल्ड जिसमें हम रहते हैं, इसकी रिस्ट्रिक्शन ये है कि हम लोग मुख्तलिफ अबदान में हों. We are in different bodies moving around. But what connects us is the soul. We have one soul. Why is that one soul? Because all of us share the love of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam. We are one. No matter where we are one. We have to behave like one. This is the understanding we need to have. And then we share in kind the rest of humanity as well. How the Imams would behave with someone who's not a Muslim, mathalan, who's an enemy of Islam, who's an enemy of the Prophet because of a misunderstanding. But look at the character of the Imam alayhi salatu wasalam. And this I'll tell you, my children, and this is an experience I've had, living in different places, going to different madaris, sitting with different teachers, meeting different people, experiences in life. Be nice with everyone, be humane with everyone, be kind to everyone. Befriend. See, being friends and being kind is 2 different things. Because when you are kind to someone, you help them and expect nothing in return. Because your ajr is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We spoke about this 2 nights ago or last night. Yes? Anything you do for someone, don't expect him to return the same because he can't. Expect a reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yes? But when you befriend someone, when you become their friend, when you become very close, he starts affecting you and you start affecting him. And this is how what we've understood in society and social norms. We've understood the one who has a more impressionate personality, the one who's more stronger, more comfortable in himself, leaves an impression on the other one. And you take away what you take away from your friends. And an example, if I have a friend who works in the municipality and his day job is taking trash or working with trash, or he works in a sewage company which clears out trash, how do you think this person smells? He doesn't smell very nice. He's working with sewage all day long. He's fixing pipes. He goes home and he showers and he changes all those things, but while he's working, while he's in that place, working of his place of work, he stinks. There's a smell coming off of him because where he works is not a good hygienic place. And if I was to sit with him, even though I'm not working with him, when I go, I smell how like my friend smells. This happens with smokers. One person may not smoke, but the other friend who smokes, you go home and your father's like, but you smoking? It's like, no, that friend of mine is smoking. So that's why I stink of cigarettes. Now imagine your friend works in the perfumery and he works in a place where they're selling deodorants and colognes and perfumes. And you sit at his shop all day long. When you go back, how do you smell? You smell good because he works in a perfume store. Common sense, right? Befriend someone that because it's easy to tell when you're working with people. Always befriend someone where you can imagine to see him in Karbala, where you see him as a Zahir of Imam Hussein al-Islam potential. Because if he's not, like I said this the other night as well, if he's not going to Karbala, you take him to Karbala. But if you see that potential, befriend that person. If not, then pray for him. Find another friend. Because we're very young. It's easy for people to impress upon us. It's easy for us to pick up bad habits. Life is too short. But this is an easy hack, or this is an easy way to identify friends from foe. Befriend someone, see if you can go Karbala with him. Or if he is going to Karbala once more. If not, see if you can take him to Karbala. Because once you're there, like the hadith of Imam Hadi alayhi salatu salam, Imam Hadi alayhi salatu salam says, he may love us right now, but he may not know us, and he may not accept Islam, but in his children, someone down the road, when that friend of yours is in Karbala, he's went to the Haram Imam Hussein, he's gone to the Haram Abul Fadl, he's had the tabarruk, he's done the walk. He may not be Muslim at that time, but he's had that experience, and for a second, let's presume, his heart opens for the love of the Ahlul Bayt, will bring someone good in his children or his grandchildren. These are not jokes. Many people, 2 people I've met, they were in Dars with us in Qom. 2 people, brilliant students. And you ask them, he says, are you from children of ulama? He says, no. It's like, how did you find yourself at the door of the Ahlul Bayt and you've benefited so much from the Ahlul Bayt? They said, we were simple folk. We don't know much. We lived in a village far away. We didn't know much of the deen and sharia. We didn't have the tawdi'ul masail. We didn't know the ahkam. We did not know anything. He said, then what? He says, but every time, once a week, my grandmother would cook food, and she'd prepare the food, and she said, find poor Sadat in your locality, find poor people who are Sadat, or from the children of the Ahlul Bayt, and go give them the food quietly. Nobody should find out. And if there's food left over, give it to the lovers of, or the Shias of Ahlul Bayt. He says, this was the act. This is something I've witnessed. And the other thing is, every time there was azadari, she would participate. Unko nahi ahkam aati. It's not that they don't want to do it. It's just that they had no access to it. But this saved them. And this is one story, one incident. There's places and there's people like this. Please recite the salawat on Muhammad wa Muhammad. Sometimes when incidents are mentioned on the mimbar, people ask, कि reference क्या होगा? किताब में है हवाला है, बाज़ दफ़ा मिल जाता है किताब में हवाला. आयतुल्लाह अली नक़वी साहब ने, नक़न साहब मारूफ है, उन्होंने किताब लिखी है. पूरी किताब मुअजिज़ात पे है. बगदाद में there was a time जब 27 रजब को मुअजिज़ात होते थे, उन्होंने उसको सब अकाउंट किया. और ऐसा नहीं कि मैंने सुना और उसको लिख लिया, नहीं. He asked, inquired, where is this miracle from? He said, oh, such and such person came from Baghdad to Qadimain, to Imam Jawad and Imam al-Qadim alayhi salatu salam, and he couldn't walk, he got healed. Ayatollah Ali Naqvi would go with his friend. You know the Sayyid who was sitting here the other night, the Iraqi Sayyid, his grandfather. They would go together and they'd interview the person. And they would say, where are you from? He says, I'm from that and that place. Can we have your ID card? Yes. What did you experience? And they would make an account of it. The same thing happens in Mashhad. Let me tell you a story I witnessed. Please recite the salawat on Muhammad. I read an incident in the book. Where Aghay Darbandi writes in his book, and he says that in a Hindu locality where there was a few select houses of the Shia, in Muharram they would come out and they would do processions. So some Hindus would also participate in the procession. He says one night there was a knock on the door of one of the houses of the Shias, and these people, they brought in a cloth something tied up. So the man who's a Shia of the household, he says, what is the problem? He says, can you bury this in your graveyard? Can you bury this in your grave? Can you bury this body in your graveyard? He says, is he Hindu? He says, yes, he's Hindu. He says, then why don't you burn him like you burned the rest? He says, we've tried burning him, but his chest won't burn. क्योंकि ये मातम करता था. We tried burning him, but his chest won't burn. ठीक है, I read this story, I put it aside. It's in a book, right? So the most I would tell you is I can reference the story in this book I found. That in a Hindu locality, there was a few Shia houses, they would do azadari. One Hindu person would do matam as well. They tried to burn his body wouldn't burn, so they buried him. 4 years ago, I'm in a school in Karachi, I'm speaking to the vice principal of the school, and I said, you know what, I read this in this book. He said, you read it in the book? He says, I've seen it. नाम बता दूँ, थरपारकर इलाका है हिंदुओं का, कराची के पास बाहर, सिंध के बाहर, वहाँ पे इलाका है. कहते हैं, I was in my house. This person who's telling me the story lives in Canada. If anybody wants, I can tell you where to go talk to him. He says, I was a young man in my house, and in a group of houses was all the Shia Sadat houses, and the other neighboring houses were Hindu people. He says, exactly the same thing that you're narrating in the book has happened to me. There was a knock on the door, and a group of them came up. He says, this is one of our dead. We tried burning it. Some part of his body burned, but his chest is not burning. Can you bury him, please? Why? Because he used to do matam. I know Hindu people, I personally know Hindu people from Sindh who would ask the azadars, he says, can you let your Zuljana to come feed off our farm? जब घोड़ा खेत में चले आता है तो खेत बर्बाद हो जाता है, तहस नहस हो जाता है, अपनी मर्जी से जहाँ उसको दिल चाहे चले जाता है वो. Everywhere the horse goes, वो, right? He says, can you let our horse to come in our gardens and feed in our farm? He says, why? He says, because we've noticed every time this Zuljana comes to our fields and eat from our crop, we have good crops that year. Hindu log bata rahe hain. Again, I am an eyewitness to this incident. A third incident, there's a man who does immigration work in Karachi. These are things I've heard. This is one first-hand accounts. He does immigration work in Karachi. I went to go see him for some work. He introduces himself and he says, are you Shia? I said, yes. He says, I'm a Hindu man. I live in, naam bataya usne kahan rehte hain wo. I live in that place. He says, when we were young, my younger brother got very sick to a point where nobody knew how to deal with him, and they thought maybe we will lose this baby and this baby will die. Yes. So they told us to go to Karachi and find a good doctor, a bigger city, and go find a doctor and then get him healed. He says because it was 9th and 10th of Muharram ke din chal rahe the, we didn't have any access. Trains mushkil thi. So my khala told my mother, he says, try this. ये भी जुलूस अलम और दुलजना निकलेंगे ना, ताबूत निकलेंगे. अपने बच्चे को यहाँ ले जाओ. Take your child, this Hindu child, and take him to the Duljana and Tabut. और जिसका नाम लेके ये मांगते हैं उनका नाम लेके आप मांगे. Whatever they're saying, repeat it and just ask. वो साहब उनका मैं नाम नहीं लूँगा because private पे वो सब उनको तंग करना शुरू कर दें, लेकिन मैं बता दूँगा आपको अगर कोई मिलना चाहे. He says we came home and there was a very distinct smell in the house. A very distinct smell in the house. It was like something I haven't smelled before. And my brother was okay in the morning. कौन मुझे बता रहा है ये? कोई शिया बता रहा है जो मातम कर रहा होता है वहाँ खड़े होके? मुझे हिंदू शख्स बता रहा है. अब समझे कि मैं हदीस में बता रहा हूँ. अगर and you know what, search it up. जियो पे जियो टीवी है, उन्होंने डॉक्यूमेंट्री बनाई है क्योंकि इस शख्स के मामू ने कराची के बाहर जो इलाका है वहाँ पे इमाम बारगाह बनाया है. हिंदुओं का इमाम बारगाह है, वो रन करते हैं उसको इस अक़ीदे की वजह से. हम लोगों से कह रहे हैं कि मत करो, रुक जाओ, गलत कर रहे हो, you're not doing it properly. This is not the way to do it. I'm telling you, go, move out, ask questions, ask people, why do you come to Karbala? There's so many people who look foreign. They don't look desi like how we do. They don't look like from India, Pakistan. But you ask them, it's like, why do you come to Karbala? What brought you to Karbala? They'll have stories to tell you. They'll have accounts to tell you. Experiences, real life experiences. In the few nights I've tried many different ways. One night I tried to have an intellectual discussion. One night I tried to have an academic discussion. I tried to bring hadith, riwayat, incidents. This is the night I talked about experiences, where people have witnessed real life experiences with their attachment to the Ahlul Bayt. And this again is a very dunyawi thing. This is only a worldly thing. Somebody fell sick, went to the Ahlul Bayt. But this is very simple for the Ahlul Bayt. The Ahlul Bayt want you to not only not be sick, be healthy, so healthy that you live forever and ever in Jannah. This is what they're after, the Ahlul Bayt. They want your good. And I said this the other night, and I'll say this again. Many people say many things. One of the things they say is because the Banu Hashim was going through difficult times, so they decided that, you know what, one man should be the prophet, and he'll tell everyone he's the prophet, and this is how we'll gain prominence. These are the allegations they make on the Prophet of Islam. These are the allegations they make. It says Ali was a warrior, he liked to fight, that's why he came forward. And this is what Yazid said in his court. Yazid bin Muawiyah, rahmatullahi alayh, he said in his court, he says, La wahyun ja'at, La nabiyun ja'a wa la wahyun nazal. He says, there's no book that was revealed. This is ashar of Yazid. He said this, like there's no prophet that came. There's no revelation. This is all a ploy. This is all a game by Banu Hashim to gain power. This was his mindset. This is what he would say. If this was true, then I ask you, and I ask every human being, and I ask everyone who's listening, Shia or Sunni, if power was what Hussein ibn Ali ibn Abi Talib was after, there should have come a point where Hussein would have stopped. When you realize, see, Imam Ali was struck in the mihrab. Imam Hassan was poisoned. You say, we know that the Imam knew it was their time, yes? But for someone who's an outsider, he'll say Ali was praying and he was struck. He didn't know death was coming for him. Hassan was poisoned. He didn't know death was coming for him. Hussein is seeing death approach him. Every moment he takes, every step he's taken when he's left Karbala, Medina, he's seen death come to him. There could have been any instance where Imam Hussein says, you know what? if he was not on the truth. If Hussein was not the Hujjah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If Hussein was not godly, he had so many reminders where he could have turned around and said, you know what? No. Till the last test, where Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam says, هل من ناصر ينصرنا أما من ناصر يغيثنا. Is there nobody who will come to the aid of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salatu wasalam? There is an army of people in front of Hussein ibn Ali ibn Abi Talib. He calls upon, he says, أما من ناصر ينصرنا. The narration goes, the narrators say, that the women in the camps started crying all of a sudden. Imam Hussein turns towards the tents, and he goes towards the tents, and he says, what's happening? He says, when you said, هل من ناصر ينصرنا, Ali Asghar dropped himself from the cradle. Ali al-Asghar, Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam's 6-month-old baby, he says he threw himself from the cradle. He turned around and he fell off. Imam Hussein lifts him up, picks him up, and he covers Ali al-Asghar with his abba, and he walks and he leaves the tent, and he walks towards the battlefield. Have the children not seen what has happened all day? Have they not seen Qasim leave and not come back? Have they not seen Ali ibn Akbar leave and not come back? Have they not seen each and every friend, every companion, every lover of Imam Hussein leave but not come back? And now this is Asghar leaving in his father's arms. What must go through the heart of Sakina at that time? What must go through the heart of Rubab at that time? What must go through the hearts of all the women and the children present in the tent at the time? But this is the Hujjah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is Imam al-Hussein. He has to go and he has to tell people, what you're doing, are you in mistakes? What I stand for is correct. La ilaha illallah Muhammadun Rasulullah. I call you to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you take all these people away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam, and the poet says something very nice. The poet said something very nice. He says, all the people who left the camp of Imam Hussein, all the people who went to the battlefield, they would sit on a horse and they'd go to the battlefield. He says, Ali Asghar, you don't have a horse, but you have Hussein's arms, and Hussein carries you to the battlefield. You know why it is very difficult? It is very difficult to recite the Masa'ib of Hazrat Ali Asghar alayhi salatu. You know why it's very difficult? Because each and every shaheed in Karbala that went to battlefield at least had a chance to defend themselves. If you're not carrying a shield, you have a sword to defend yourself. If you don't have a sword, you at least put your arms up in defense for yourself. Every shaheed in Karbala had a chance to at least defend themselves. This is Hussein carrying his 6-month-old baby. This is Hussein carrying his 6-month-old baby to the battlefield. Maqtal says many things. I don't have the heart to say all of them. But what the Maqtal does finish with, he says, there was a time where an arrow was fired. That arrow was fired and it pierced Ali Asghar's throat, and it pierced Imam Hussein's arm. That is when Imam Hussein noticed that his son was slaughtered in his own arms. That is when Imam al-Hussein noticed that his son's 6-month-old baby was slaughtered in his own arms. Imam Hussein holds the baby. He takes the arrow out. And the Imam Hussein, in his palm, is blood of Ali al-Asghar. Imam Baqir alayhi salatu wasalam says Imam Hussein throws the blood to the heavens, as if to say, Allah, you be witness. They killed my Ali Asghar. Allah, you be witness. The eldest one was Habib ibn Madahir, Zuhair. This is the youngest shaykh to go. Even the youngest one, they killed Allah. You be witness. And you know what your Imam does after that? What the Maqtal says. The rest of the blood that was in his hand, Imam wipes it on his face. He says, this is how I will see my grandfather, with the blood of Ali Asghar on my face. This is how I will see my grandfather. This is how I will see him. I will complain to him. They killed my Ali Asghar. They killed my Ali Asghar. I have a question. How, the Maqtal doesn't say much about here, but I have a question. How then did Hussein turn around and he walked back toward the tent? How did he tell Rabab what happened? What does he tell Sakina what happened? How does he face them? That is why you do the Amal on the day of Ashura. Imam Hussein walks to the tent and then he walks back. And then he walks forward and he takes a few steps. He says, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. And then he takes steps back. It's like, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. I don't know what happened in the tent. The Maqtal is silent. What the Maqtal does say is Imam Hussein goes to a place behind the tent. And when his Zulfiqar with his sword, he digs in the ground, in the sand. Imam Hussein standing there with his sword, digging a small hole, a small grave, and he places Ali al-Nasr in this grave. سيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون رضا بقضائه وتسليما لأمره.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن أمير المؤمنين وإمام المتقين عليا ولي الله أشهد أن أمير